Picture this. A man stands at a crossroads facing a decision that will define the rest of his life. On one side, society demands he takes on another burden, another responsibility, another sacrifice. On the other side, his soul screams for freedom, for choice, for the right to say no. He chooses himself, and within hours, the punishment begins. His family calls him selfish. His friends question his manhood. His co-workers whisper about his lack of ambition. Strangers online call him weak, entitled, a failure. And society, that invisible judge and jury, delivers its verdict. This man is not worthy. He has committed the unforgivable sin of refusing to carry what was expected of him. Niccolò Machiavelli, the master of power who advised princes and studied the mechanics of human societies, would look at this situation and tell you something most people never want to hear. Society doesn't punish this man because he's wrong. Society punishes him because he's dangerous. He's dangerous because he's demonstrating something terrifying to the system, that the burdens men carry are optional, not mandatory. That masculine duty is a construction, not a destiny. That you can say no without the world ending. And the moment one man successfully refuses and survives, the entire structure that depends on male compliance begins to crack. Men start wondering why they accepted these burdens in the first place. They start questioning whether the rewards actually match the costs. They start calculating whether the game is actually worth playing. And this is what society cannot allow, because everything, absolutely everything, depends on men continuing to say yes. The economy depends on men working jobs that destroy their bodies and minds. The military depends on men willing to die for concepts they barely understand. Families depend on men providing resources regardless of personal cost. Communities depend on men solving problems that everyone else ignores. And all of this only works if men never realize they have the option to refuse. Machiavelli understood this dynamic perfectly. Men are driven by two principal impulses, fear and ambition. Society has weaponized both against you. They've made you fear the consequences of refusal while simultaneously making you ambitious for the rewards of compliance. But here's what they never tell you. The fear is manufactured, the ambition is manipulated, and the entire system is designed to extract maximum value from your life while giving you minimum choice about how you spend it. Walk through any modern city, and you'll see the evidence everywhere. Men working 60-hour weeks to afford houses they're never home to enjoy. Men destroying their health to provide for families who resent them for being absent. Men sacrificing their dreams to meet expectations they never agreed to in the first place. And when these men finally break, when they finally say enough, when they finally refuse to carry one more burden they didn't choose, society responds with a punishment so swift and brutal, it serves as a warning to every other man watching. The punishment comes in layers, each designed to break a different part of your resistance. First comes the social layer. Your family reframes your refusal as betrayal. Your friends reinterpret your boundary as weakness. Your community recasts your choice as failure. Suddenly, you're not a man making a decision. You're a disappointment, a cautionary tale. Proof that some men just don't have what it takes. Machiavelli called this the necessity of appearances. Society doesn't just want your compliance. They want your enthusiastic participation in your own exploitation. They want you to carry burdens with a smile, to accept sacrifice as honor, to interpret your exhaustion as evidence of virtue. And when you refuse to perform this theater, they punish you by removing the only reward the system ever offered: social approval. But here's what makes this truly insidious. The punishment escalates based on how visible your refusal becomes. If you quietly opt out, make yourself small, and disappear from society's expectations, you might escape with minimal consequences. You'll be poor, lonely, and marginalized, but you'll be left alone. However, if you refuse loudly, if you make your choice visible, if you dare to suggest that other men might also have the option to refuse, the punishment becomes exponential. Because now you're not just refusing your burdens, you're threatening the entire system that depends on male compliance. Think about what happens to men who visibly opt out. The man who refuses to pursue corporate advancement gets labeled unmotivated and passed over not just for promotions, but for basic opportunities. His refusal is treated as a character flaw that contaminates everything else he does. The man who refuses to get married and have children gets called immature, selfish, incomplete. Society doesn't frame this as a valid choice. They frame it as arrested development, as if refusing traditional masculine obligations means refusing to grow up. The man who refuses to sacrifice his body for dangerous work gets called lazy. Never mind that the work might be genuinely hazardous, that the compensation might be inadequate, that the long-term costs might far exceed the short-term benefits. His refusal is evidence of moral failure, not rational calculation. And here's the truly brutal part. These punishments aren't bugs in the system. They're features. They're deliberately designed to make refusing more painful than complying. Because if refusal became attractive, if saying no became socially acceptable, if boundaries became normalized, the entire structure of society would need to be renegotiated. The second layer of punishment is economic. Society has structured itself so that male compliance is financially rewarded and male refusal is economically punished. This isn't an accident. This is design. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must be a fox to recognize traps. The economic trap modern men face is that the jobs that pay well enough to be independent are often the jobs that demand total submission. Corporate positions that require 60 to 80-hour weeks. Industrial work that trades your body for money. Entrepreneurship that consumes every waking hour. Meanwhile, the work that might actually align with your values, that might respect your boundaries, that might allow you to maintain your humanity. This work is systematically devalued. Teaching pays poverty wages. Creative work is dismissed as hobby nonsense. Caregiving is economically invisible. The message is clear. If you want financial security, you must sacrifice everything else. If you want to maintain your humanity, you must accept financial precarity. There is no option where you get both security and autonomy. This is by design because autonomous men with resources are the most dangerous thing to any established power structure. So what happens when a man refuses this economic coercion? He gets poor, not as a natural consequence of his choices, but as a deliberate punishment for his refusal. Society could structure itself differently. We could have shorter work weeks with the same pay. We could value different kinds of labor. We could create economic systems that don't require human sacrifice, but we don't. Because the point isn't economic efficiency. The point is control. The point is ensuring that men who refuse to submit face such severe economic consequences that most men look at those consequences and decide submission is the safer choice. Machiavelli understood this perfectly when he wrote that poverty does not diminish ambition. What diminishes ambition is watching what happens to men who refused to compromise. You see men living in tiny apartments, working gig economy jobs, scraping by, while their peers who accepted corporate submission have houses, families, and security. The system makes sure you see this comparison constantly. Social media is full of success stories from men who sacrificed everything. Your family asks why you can't be more like your cousin who works in finance. Your friends gradually drift away as their lives fill with the rewards of compliance, while your life remains small because of your refusal. Which city are you watching this from right now? I'm curious where in the world this message is landing, because what I'm describing transcends borders, cultures, languages. This is happening everywhere that modern society exists. Drop your location in the comments because I guarantee the patterns I'm describing are playing out in your city right the same way they're playing out everywhere else. The third layer of punishment is psychological, and this is perhaps the most devastating because it attacks you from the inside. Society doesn't just punish you externally for refusing masculine burdens. They colonize your mind so that you punish yourself. This is what Machiavelli would call the ultimate mastery. When you enslave a man so thoroughly that he becomes his own jailer. And modern society has perfected this technique through something psychologists call internalized expectations. From the moment you're born male, You're programmed with a series of non-negotiable requirements. Men provide, men protect, men sacrifice, men endure, men don't complain, men don't quit. Men carry weight without asking if the weight is fair. These messages come from everywhere. Your father modeling exhaustion as virtue. Your mother praising sacrifice as love. Your teachers rewarding boys who suppress their needs. Your coaches celebrating pain tolerance. Your culture worshiping men who destroyed themselves for others. And slowly, gradually, inevitably, these external messages become internal commands. You start believing that your value as a man is directly proportional to how much burden you can carry. You start feeling that refusing responsibility is the same as refusing masculinity itself. You start experiencing guilt whenever you prioritize your needs over external demands. This is the psychological trap. By the time you're old enough to recognize you have choices, you're already so thoroughly programmed that refusing doesn't feel like exercising freedom. It feels like failing at being a man. And when you do refuse, when you do set a boundary, when you do prioritize yourself, society doesn't even need to punish you externally. You punish yourself. The guilt comes automatically. The shame is instant. The fear that you're not a real man, that you're weak, that you're selfish. This fear is more effective than any external punishment could ever be. Machiavelli wrote that the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Apply this to your own life. Look at the voices in your head that criticize you for setting boundaries. Are those voices really yours? Or are they society's representatives that you've internalized? When you feel guilty for refusing to work overtime, whose guilt is that really? When you feel ashamed for not wanting children, whose shame is that actually? When you feel like a failure for choosing a lower-paying job that respects your humanity, whose definition of failure are you accepting? The psychological punishment for refusing masculine burdens works because it makes you complicit in your own oppression. You become the enforcer of the very system that's destroying you. And this is genius-level social control because it means society doesn't need to constantly police your choices. You police them yourself. You monitor your own compliance. You punish your own refusals. You've become both the prisoner and the guard. The fourth layer of punishment is relational, and this might be the most painful because it attacks the connections that make life worth living. When you refuse to carry expected burdens, your relationships change, not because the people in your life are malicious, but because your refusal threatens the invisible contracts that structure all modern relationships. Think about what most relationships with men are actually based on. What you provide, what you sacrifice, what utility you offer. Your relationship with your parents is often structured around whether you're meeting their expectations. Your relationship with romantic partners frequently depends on your ability to provide resources or solve problems. Your friendships with other men are sometimes competitive performances of who can carry more weight without complaining. And your relationship with your children, if you have them, is often reduced to whether you're adequately provisioning their future. These aren't relationships in any meaningful sense. These are transactional arrangements dressed up in emotional language. And the transaction is always the same. You provide compliance, sacrifice, and resources. They provide approval, affection, and conditional acceptance. So what happens when you refuse to hold up your end of this unspoken bargain? The relationships dissolve, not honestly, not with acknowledgement of what was really happening, but gradually, painfully, with increasing distance and decreasing warmth, until one day you realize that the people you thought loved you actually just valued what you provided. Your parents become disappointed, not because they don't love you, but because their love was always conditional on you fulfilling a role they needed you to play. Your romantic partner becomes distant, not because the relationship was bad, but because the relationship was always predicated on a division of labor, where you carry certain burdens and they receive certain benefits. Your friends become unavailable, not because they're bad people, but because friendship between men is often actually a mutual support group for enduring exploitation. And when you stop participating in that shared suffering, you no longer fit. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote that friendships that are obtained by payments may be lost by payments. Most of your relationships were obtained by your willingness to pay, with your time, energy, resources, sacrifice. And the moment you stop making those payments, those relationships reveal themselves as the transactions they always were. This is devastating to realize because it means you've been fundamentally alone this entire time, surrounded by people who valued what you could do for them, but never actually saw who you were. The man who refuses masculine burdens often discovers that he has to build an entirely new social world from scratch, finding the rare people who can appreciate him for his humanity rather than his utility. And those people are rare because society systematically trains us to value men instrumentally rather than intrinsically. The fifth layer of punishment is existential. When you refuse to carry the burden society expects, you lose access to the ready-made meaning that compliance provides. This is subtle but profound. Society offers men a deal. Accept these burdens, and in exchange, your life will have clear meaning. You're providing for your family, so your suffering has purpose. You're building a career, so your exhaustion has direction. You're meeting expectations, so your sacrifices aren't in vain. This is what philosophers call constructed meaning. Society gives you a narrative framework where your compliance becomes heroic, your submission becomes virtue, and your exhaustion becomes evidence that you're living correctly. But when you refuse these burdens, you lose this framework. Suddenly, your life doesn't have a pre-written script. There's no clear path forward. There's no social validation telling you that you're doing the right thing. You're in existential freefall, forced to construct your own meaning without society's approval or guidance. Machiavelli wrote that men are more ready to repay an injury than a benefit, because gratitude is a burden and revenge a pleasure. When you refuse society's burdens, you're forcing society to confront something it doesn't want to face. That the meaning it offers men is often hollow, that the purposes it assigns are often meaningless, that the sacrifices it demands often serve no one but those in power. And society repays this revelation with punishment because your refusal is an injury to the collective narrative. You're demonstrating that the emperor has no clothes, that masculine duty is often just exploitation with a noble-sounding name, that the burdens men carry often benefit everyone except the men carrying them. This existential punishment manifests as a profound loneliness. You're no longer part of the collective story. You're not working toward the common good, because you've recognized that the common good often means your personal destruction. You're not participating in the great human project, because you've noticed that this project uses men as disposable tools. And without that sense of collective purpose, you face the terrifying freedom of having to decide for yourself what your life means. Many men can't tolerate this freedom. The existential weight of constructing your own meaning is heavier than the physical weight of carrying society's burdens. So they return to compliance. They pick up the burdens they briefly set down. They re-accept the roles they momentarily refused, not because they want to, but because the punishment for refusal is simply too comprehensive, too brutal, too isolating to endure. And this is exactly what the system counts on. The punishment is designed to be more painful than the compliance. The isolation is designed to be more unbearable than the exploitation. The existential emptiness is designed to be more terrifying than the exhaustion. But here's what Machiavelli understood that most people miss. The cruelty of the punishment reveals the fragility of the system. If masculine compliance were actually natural, inevitable, and beneficial, no punishment would be necessary. Men would voluntarily accept these burdens because doing so would obviously improve their lives. The fact that such severe punishment is required proves that the system knows the truth. That given a real choice, many men would refuse. That given actual freedom, many men would opt out. That given genuine alternatives, many men would choose themselves over society's demands. The punishment exists because the system is terrified of what happens when men realize they have options. So what does Machiavelli's wisdom tell us about navigating this minefield? How do you refuse burdens without triggering the full force of society's punishment? First, Understand that you're not fighting individual people. You're navigating a system. Your mother isn't personally oppressing you when she asks why you're not married. She's an agent of a system that needs men to form families so society can continue. Your boss isn't personally exploiting you when he expects 60-hour weeks. He's operating within an economic structure that extracts maximum value from human beings. Your friends aren't personally rejecting you when they distance themselves. They're responding to social programming that tells them men who refuse burdens are dangerous. This understanding doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps you navigate it strategically rather than emotionally. Second, recognize that visibility determines punishment severity. The more publicly you refuse, the more harshly you'll be punished. This doesn't mean you should hide, but it means you need to be strategic about which battles you fight publicly and which you handle privately. Some refusals need to be public, refusing to work in genuinely dangerous conditions, setting boundaries against abuse, leaving situations that are destroying your health. But other refusals can be quiet. You don't need to announce that you've decided not to have children. You can simply not have them. You don't need to proclaim that you're rejecting corporate ambition. You can simply stop pursuing it. You don't need to declare that you're opting out of traditional masculinity. You can simply live differently without making it a statement. Machiavelli taught that the wise man does at once what a fool does finally. The fool refuses loudly and then spends years dealing with the social consequences. The wise man refuses quietly and builds the life he wants while others are still debating whether he's allowed to. Third, build economic independence before refusing economic compliance. This is harsh but true. Your ability to refuse burdens is directly proportional to your ability to survive the economic punishment that follows. If you're dependent on a job that requires total submission, you can't refuse that submission without risking homelessness. But if you've built savings, developed multiple income streams, reduced your expenses, and created financial buffer, you can afford to refuse exploitation because you can survive the economic consequences. This doesn't mean you need to be rich. It means you need to be strategic. Living below your means creates refusal capacity. Having skills that translate across industries creates refusal capacity. Building a financial cushion creates refusal capacity. Fourth, find the others. You're not alone in this, even though the punishment is designed to make you feel isolated. There are other men who've refused, other men who've set boundaries, other men who've chosen themselves over society's demands. These men are often invisible because they're not performing their choices publicly. They're quietly living differently, and if you look for them, you'll find them. Online communities of men rethinking masculinity. Local groups focused on alternative lifestyles. Friendships with men who value authenticity over performance. These connections are crucial because they provide the social support that makes refusing sustainable. When everyone around you is telling you that you're wrong, having even one person who confirms that you're not crazy makes all the difference. Fifth, construct your own meaning proactively. Don't wait for the existential emptiness to overwhelm you. As you refuse society's burdens, simultaneously build your own sense of purpose. What matters to you personally, not what you've been told should matter. What brings you genuine satisfaction, not what brings social approval. What would you do with your life if no one was watching, judging, or keeping score? These are uncomfortable questions because they require you to think for yourself rather than accept pre-packaged answers. But they're necessary because refusing society's meaning without constructing your own just leaves you empty, and emptiness is what drives most men back to compliance. Machiavelli wrote that it is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. You don't need society's validation to live meaningfully. You need to define what meaning looks like for you, and then have the courage to pursue it regardless of external approval. Sixth, accept that some punishment is inevitable. You can minimize it, you can navigate it strategically, you can build resilience against it, but you cannot avoid it completely. Some people will be disappointed, some relationships will end, some opportunities will close, some social approval will evaporate. This is the price of freedom, and it's a price worth paying, because the alternative isn't actually better. Complying with society's demands might avoid external punishment, but it creates internal destruction. You might maintain relationships, but they're relationships with people who only value your utility. You might keep social approval, but it's approval for performing a role rather than being yourself. You might avoid economic consequences, but you spend your life doing work that slowly kills you. The punishment for refusing is visible and social. The punishment for complying is invisible and personal. Both are real. Both are painful. The only question is which punishment you can live with. And here's where Machiavelli's deepest wisdom becomes relevant. He understood that power isn't about controlling others. It's about refusing to be controlled. Every man faces a choice: submit to society's demands and receive the rewards of compliance, which are mostly illusions anyway, or refuse society's demands and face the punishment of nonconformity, which is real but survivable. Most men choose submission because the punishment for refusal is made so visible, while the cost of compliance is hidden until it's too late. You see men who refuse struggling, isolated, marginalized. You don't see men who complied dying at 60 of stress-related disease, divorced because they were never home, estranged from children they worked themselves to death to provide for, wondering where their life went. The system makes sure you see the punishment for refusal while hiding the punishment for compliance. But once you understand this game, once you recognize that you're being punished either way, the choice becomes clearer. Refuse and face external punishment, but maintain internal integrity. Or comply and maintain external approval, but destroy internal authenticity. There is no option where you avoid punishment completely. There is only the choice of which punishment you're willing to endure. Machiavelli's final lesson is this: the prince who relies on fortune alone is ruined when fortune changes. The same is true for men who rely on society's approval. As long as you're meeting expectations, you receive conditional acceptance. But the moment circumstances change, the moment you can't perform, the moment you become more costly than useful, that approval vanishes instantly. The man who builds his life on society's approval discovers that approval was always conditional on his continued utility. The moment he stops being useful, he stops being valued. This is why refusing society's burdens isn't weakness. It's the ultimate expression of strength. You're choosing long-term authenticity over short-term approval. You're choosing internal integrity over external validation. You're choosing to be a human being rather than a human doing. And yes, society punishes this choice brutally because society needs men to keep complying. The entire structure depends on it. But the punishment reveals the truth. Society doesn't punish you because you're wrong. Society punishes you because you're demonstrating something dangerous: that men don't actually need society's approval to live meaningful lives. That masculine duty is often just exploitation repackaged as honor. That the burdens men carry often serve everyone except the men carrying them. And that when men collectively realize they can refuse, the whole game changes. So the question isn't whether refusing will be punished. It will be. The question is whether you're willing to endure that punishment in exchange for your freedom. Because that's the real choice. Not between punishment and reward, but between external punishment with internal freedom or external approval with internal imprisonment. Machiavelli spent his life studying power, and his conclusion was clear. Real power is never given. It's taken. And the first step in taking power over your own life is refusing to carry burdens you never agreed to in the first place. The punishment will come, but so will the freedom. The only question is which you value more. Understanding this completely shifts how you see every masculine expectation, every social demand, every burden society places on your shoulders. Each one stops looking like a requirement and starts looking like a request you're free to decline. And declining isn't weakness, failure, or inadequacy. Declining is recognizing that your life belongs to you, not to society's endless appetite for male sacrifice. This realization doesn't make the punishment disappear, but it reframes what the punishment means. It's not evidence that you're wrong, it's evidence that you're free. Now I want to see something in the comments that tells me this message actually landed. Write this exact phrase down there. I choose my freedom over their approval. Don't just watch and disappear. Put that statement out into the world, because when you write it, when you commit to it publicly, something shifts inside you. That simple act of declaring your choice makes it real. Drop that phrase in the comments right now, and when you do, you're joining every other man who's watching this and making the same choice. You're creating evidence that you're not alone in this. Do it now before you move on to the next thing and forget. And here's what I need you to understand about hitting that subscribe button and leaving a like. Every time you do that, you're voting for content that actually tells you the truth instead of comfortable lies. You're supporting the creation of more videos that break down these systems instead of reinforcing them. This isn't about me. It's about building a space where men can hear perspectives that society actively tries to suppress. When you subscribe, when you like this video, you're not just supporting a channel. You're participating and spreading ideas that powerful systems don't want spreading. You're helping other men find this message when they're drowning in expectations and starting to wonder if there's another way. So subscribe right now, hit that like button, and be part of something bigger than just watching content. Because what's coming next is going to challenge something even deeper than what we discussed here. The next video breaks down another truth that society has wrapped in so many layers of manipulation that most men never see it clearly. I'm going to show you exactly how a specific system operates that you interact with every single day. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Everything changes when you understand this next piece. Stay close, keep watching, because what's coming will complete what we started here today. You're going to want to see this next one.